This is not just the story of a protest. It's the story of a nation pushed to its breaking point. Welcome back to Unsolved Crime Case. It's always good to have you here. If you've been following our stories, you know we don't just tell what happened. We uncover why it happened. So sit back, stay close, and let's dive deep into today's story. In 2025, Nepal tried to silence its people by banning social media. What followed was unlike anything the world expected. Buildings burned, thousands escaped from prisons, the prime minister resigned, and the streets of Kathmandu turned into a battlefield. But here's the part no one saw coming. This uprising wasn't really about social media at all. Stay with me until the end, because the deeper you go into this story, the darker it becomes, and the shocking truth about what really caused the bloodshed might change the way you see the world. Nepal on fire. The Gen Z uprising that shook a nation. Kathmandu skyline, calm streets, sudden cuts to fires, smoke, police lines. In the heart of the Himalayas, a storm was brewing. It wasn't nature this time, but the voice of a generation. What began as a simple ban on social media would spiral into deadly clashes, burning buildings, and the resignation of Nepal's prime minister. Tonight, we uncover how censorship, corruption, and a restless youth brought an entire nation to its knees. Nepal on fire, the Gen Z uprising, slow pans of Kathmandu streets, crowded markets, young people with phones. To understand the rage that erupted in 2025, we must first go back. For years, Nepalis have struggled with poverty, corruption, and inequality. Political elites lived in luxury, while ordinary citizens faced rising unemployment and limited opportunities. The frustration was most visible among the young Generation Z, who turned to one powerful tool: social media. TikTok Reels, Instagram posts exposing elites' wealth, flashy cars, parties of politicians' children. On TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, young Nepalis expose the lavish lifestyles of the so-called Nepo kids, children of politicians and the wealthy elite. In a country where millions struggle to make ends meet, these images hit a nerve. And for many, social media became more than entertainment. It became resistance. Government press conferences, politicians at podiums. But the government saw things differently. Officials warned of misinformation, fake profiles, online scams, and hate speech spreading online. Their solution: control. Breaking news headlines, 26 platforms banned, crowds looking at phones. In early September 2025, the government gave an ultimatum. Global tech companies must register locally, open offices in Nepal, and follow new laws. When the deadline passed without compliance, the government banned 26 platforms, including Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, WhatsApp, and X. Stunned young people outside cyber cafes, clips of empty phone screens. For the ruling class, this was about control. For the people, it was a betrayal. Overnight, millions were cut off from the very platforms where they expressed themselves, shared their struggles, and connected to the outside world. Whispers in cafes, posters calling for protests. The message was clear: dissent would not be tolerated. But what followed was the exact opposite of what the government intended. Drone shots of protesters gathering, chants echoing in the streets. September 7th. It began with small crowds in Kathmandu, Pokhara, and Butwal. Young people waving signs, chanting slogans demanding freedom of speech. The protests spread quickly. By September 8th, thousands flooded the streets. Police lines, tear gas firing, chaos in the Mel district. The government answered with force: tear gas, rubber bullets, and in some cases live ammunition. By nightfall, at least 19 people lay dead. Hundreds more were injured. The streets of Kathmandu became battlegrounds. Students running, smoke filling alleys, families crying. For many Nepalis, it was a day they would never forget. parents searching for their children, hospitals overwhelmed with the wounded, and a generation that realized the cost of speaking out could be their lives. Singha Durbar engulfed in flames, parliament breached, black smoke in sky. The next day, anger turned to rage. Protesters stormed the parliament. The Singha Durbar, Nepal's iconic administrative complex, was set ablaze. Even the Supreme Court could not escape the fury of the mob. Homes of politicians burning, army trucks moving, residences of political leaders were attacked, including the Prime Minister's residence and the President's palace. Symbols of authority were no longer untouchable. Hyatt Regency Hotel fire, tourists escaping, luxury hotels seen as playgrounds for the rich were torched. In one tragic case, a tourist from India died in a fire at a hotel in Kathmandu, jumping from the window in a desperate attempt to escape. Prison gates broken, inmates fleeing, and in a shocking twist, over 13,500 prisoners escaped when jails were stormed nationwide. Among them were dangerous fugitives wanted across the border in India. The chaos had now spiraled beyond control. Press conference. PM Ali looking defeated. Army convoys rolling in. The government was shaken. Prime Minister K.P. Sharma Ali, facing the nation's wrath, resigned on September 10th. Hours later, the controversial social media ban was lifted, but it was too little, too late. Soldiers guarding parliament. Curfew orders broadcast on TV. The army imposed curfews in Kathmandu and patrolled the streets. Soldiers stood guard over parliament, ministries, and burned out landmarks. For the first time in years, Nepal's capital looked like a war zone. Mourning families, funerals, protesters lighting candles. In the aftermath, grief and anger intertwined. Families of the dead demanded justice. Survivors carried scars, both physical and emotional. And Generation Z, once silenced, had become the most powerful political force in Nepal. Protesters negotiating with army. Names floated for interim leadership. With Ali gone, the army began talks with protesters to form an interim government. Some suggested former justices, others demanded new elections. But one truth was clear: the old ways could not continue. Half-burnt parliament, smoke-stained walls, broken glass. Yet the scars on Nepal's institutions remain. Parliament reduced to rubble, government headquarters destroyed, hotels and businesses gone. The cost of this uprising was measured not just in lives, but in the ashes of a nation's symbols. Kathmandu at dawn, smoke rising slowly, prayer flags fluttering. It was supposed to be about fake profiles, online scams, and digital safety. Instead, it became a revolution, a movement against corruption, privilege, and inequality. A fire that consumed the old and demanded something new. Youth holding banners, students speaking to cameras, police watching silently. The social media ban has been lifted. The Prime Minister has resigned. But the deeper question remains: will Nepal rise from these ashes with justice and reform? Or will silence return, stronger than before? What do you think? Should governments control social media, or should the people always decide? Tell us in the comments below. And if you found this story powerful, subscribe for more true stories from around the world. Hit the bell so you never miss an update, because the truth must be told, no matter how dark. This is where this story ends, but the next one begins on the other side of the world, where millions are rising for justice. In our next documentary, Bangladesh Stands with Gaza, the voice of a nation, we'll uncover how an entire country is defying silence and demanding an end to the bloodshed. Don't go anywhere, because what you're about to see will move you even deeper. While the world stays silent, one nation is shouting for justice. As bombs fall on Gaza, Millions are standing up in Bangladesh, marching, protesting, demanding an end to the killing and destruction. But here's what most people don't know. This movement is about more than Gaza. It's about memory, pain, and a nation that knows what it's like to be silenced and refuses to let it happen again. Stay with me until the very end, because the deeper you go into this story, the more you'll understand why Bangladesh's voice is shaking the world. In a world drowned in noise, silence can be deadly. As bombs fall on Gaza, millions of lives are caught in the crossfire. Entire neighborhoods reduced to rubble, families torn apart, children pulled from the ruins of their homes. The world watches, but not everyone speaks. In one corner of South Asia, however, silence is no longer an option. Because in Bangladesh, a nation of 170 million, something is stirring. Massive crowds are filling the streets. Voices are rising from mosques, from universities, from factories and fishing villages. And their message is simple, yet powerful. Stop the killing. End the destruction. Let Gaza live. But this is not just about solidarity. It is about history. It is about identity. It is about a nation that knows what it means to be under siege and refuses to look away when others suffer. Stay with me, because the story of Bangladesh standing with Gaza is bigger than politics. It's about memory, resistance, and the power of ordinary people who refuse to be silent. To understand why Bangladesh is rising now, we must understand what they are rising for. In Gaza, the war has been relentless. Israeli airstrikes have crushed entire neighborhoods, leaving behind craters where homes once stood. Hospitals overflow. Fuel and clean water run out. Schools collapse on the children inside them. The death toll climbs into the thousands. Fathers carrying limp bodies wrapped in white cloth, mothers screaming in silence. Images spread across the world, and for many in Bangladesh, they are unbearable. They see children who look like their children. They see the hunger they once knew, the rubble they once lived through. And they see a people being erased, slowly, while powerful nations argue over words. For many Bangladeshis, this pain is not foreign, it is familiar. It echoes their own history, their own war for freedom. Because Bangladesh, too, was once a land where bodies lined the rivers, and the world stayed quiet. Bangladesh was born in blood. In 1971, when it was still East Pakistan, millions rose up demanding independence. The Pakistani military responded with terror. Villages burned. Intellectuals murdered. Between 300,000 and 3 million people were killed. 10 million fled as refugees. It was one of the worst genocides of the 20th century. And the world hesitated. Powerful countries debated. But the killing went on. That memory is carved into Bangladesh's soul. And today, when they see Gaza under siege, when they see hospitals bombed and journalists killed, that trauma returns. They see themselves in the faces of Palestinians, and they remember what it felt like when the world stayed silent as they begged for help. This is why their solidarity is not symbolic, it is personal. Dhaka, Chittagong, Sylhet, Rajshahi, Khulna. Across the nation, the streets are swelling with people. University students march in long lines, waving Palestinian flags. Mosques echo with prayers for Gaza after every Friday sermon. School children carry handmade placards. Stop killing children. End the siege. Factories halt production. Labor unions march with banners. Tens of thousands flood city squares, chanting, "Free, free Palestine. Stop the genocide." In the capital, Shaba intersection becomes a sea of red, green, black, and white, the colors of Palestine. It's not organized by the government. It's not orchestrated by parties. It is ordinary people driven by grief, by outrage, by memory. And when voices rise together, they can shake even the walls of power. Bangladesh's government has long supported Palestine. It does not recognize Israel. It has consistently voted for UN resolutions backing Palestinian statehood. It sends humanitarian aid to Gaza when it can. But this time, the pressure is different. Because this time, the streets are demanding more. Prominent writers, human rights groups, and student organizations have released open letters condemning Israel's military actions. They accuse the international community of double standards, outrage for Ukraine, silence for Gaza. Social media has become a battlefield of its own. Hashtags like #StandWithGaza, #Bangladesh for Palestine, and #Stop the Genocide trend for weeks. Millions of Bangladeshis flood timelines with images of bombed schools, destroyed hospitals, and mass graves. Bangladesh's parliament issues statements condemning the attacks on civilians. Foreign ministry officials call for an immediate ceasefire and unrestricted humanitarian aid. But while diplomats speak softly, the streets are shouting. Beyond politics, this movement is human. It is raw. It is emotional. In villages, farmers donate a day's earnings to Gaza relief funds. Fishermen send the first catch of the day to charity drives. Shopkeepers tape Palestinian flags on their doors. In schools, children hold silent vigils. They pray for children they have never met, children whose lives now exist only as photographs on the internet. At night, in homes lit by a single bulb, families watch news reports of airstrikes. Mothers wipe tears quietly so their children won't see. Friday prayers across the country echo with verses for the dead in Gaza. Imams cry at the pulpit, and through it all, a shared belief spreads. If we do nothing, if we say nothing, we are complicit. Bangladesh knows it cannot stop the bombs, but it refuses to be silent while they fall. Bangladesh's solidarity is rooted not in power, but in principle. They have no weapons to send, no alliances to bargain with, but they have their voice. They tell the world, justice is not selective. Human rights are not conditional. A child's life is worth the same in Gaza as it is anywhere else. Bangladesh has seen occupation. It has seen massacres. It has seen the cost of silence. And so it chooses noise. It chooses defiance. It chooses to stand even if it stands alone. And that is why this movement is not just about Gaza. It is about who we become when faced with injustice. The marches in Bangladesh have not stopped. If anything, they are growing. New youth groups are forming, uniting secular activists, religious scholars, and civil society leaders under one cause. Petitions are circulating to pressure international courts to investigate alleged war crimes. Fundraisers are gathering money, food, and medical supplies to send to Gaza through NGOs. And through it all, one idea keeps spreading, that standing with Gaza is not about politics. It is about humanity. Bangladesh stands thousands of miles away, but in spirit it feels close. It feels connected by pain, by history, by hope. And hope can be louder than bombs. Bangladesh cannot end the war in Gaza, cannot rebuild the homes or return the dead. But it can do one thing: refuse to look away. It can carry the voices of the voiceless. It can remind the world that silence helps the oppressor, but solidarity helps the oppressed. And that is what Bangladesh has chosen to do. Speak, march, remember, because they know freedom is never given. It is always fought for. What do you think? Should the world stay silent? Or should every voice rise against injustice? Tell us in the comments below. And if the story moved you, share it. Because silence protects the powerful, but voices protect the innocent. Thank you for staying with us through both of these stories. Your time, your curiosity, and your support mean everything. Here at Unsolved Crime Case, we tell the stories others try to silence, and it's your presence that keeps these voices alive. This is Unsolved Crime Case, where every story demands the truth. Subscribe to join us, and never miss a story that matters.